Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. Today is the Double Double podcast for all the winners, and I am so pleased. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to talk to Michael. Today, we have been celebrating winners all day, the Inc. 5000 community, all the company winners, all the team members that are on those company who are winners, all the communities around that they're serving that are winners. And goodness, those folks who are winning every day. I just had Amanda on my podcast, and now I have Dr. Foti on my podcast. And not only I read, and I'll let him introduce himself because he's an amazing, amazing soul. And talk about being authentic. For those of you that are listening on Spotify and not watching live, I have his book in front of me, and it's called Grief, A Doctor's Battle with Anxiety and Depression. And this book has the biggest impact. If you're wondering, I know Amanda suffered from COVID. I know people on my team today are still suffering, Michael, from COVID, but Michael lived through it as a doctor. And so today, Michael joins us to share. He has a mind of a champion, and he's going to also share how he's winning. Because he's an amazing, amazing person. And if you're not connected to Michael and Michael's story, please, please, please do that. So Michael, tell everyone, introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself and tell everyone what you're passionate about. And yeah, let's do it.
Amazing. Yeah. The day has finally arrived. I feel like I've been waiting so long for this. And this is amazing. And congratulations to your wonderful company. I think that's
Thank
a
you.
phenomenal accomplishment. So kudos and congrats. That's really cool.
Thank
So happy
you.
to be here on such an important day.
Mhm.
So thank you for that really spectacular and warm introduction. So my name is Dr. Michael Foti. I'm an internal medicine physician by training. And I'll talk a bit about that in terms of what happened during my training, which is kind of the inspiration for my book. I currently teach medical students. I'm a clinical assistant professor of internal medicine at the Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine in Middletown, New
Mm.
York. Uh,
Mm.
and through my advocacy for mental health, I'm also the vice president of NAMI Orange County, New York, NAMI being the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So that's
Mm.
a bit about me in short form,
I
among other
love
things that I do.
that. What are you passionate about?
Mental health
Mm,
and erasing the stigma. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah,
um, if you'll allow me, I mean, that's kind of
yeah.
what's led to the book. But, what the book highlights is really the intimate details surrounding working
Mm,
during COVID. So I was an intern, uh, for those who don't know, when COVID arrived in 2020, in the spring of 2020. Intern being the first year of your residency training. And, suffice to say, it was one of the darkest times of my life, and I'm sure for many others. Um, I witnessed suffering and death on a scale that I never thought imaginable. And these were people in their 30s and 40s who were suffering, which made it even that much more devastating. Uh, to couple that with the fact that around the same time during this pandemic period, my mom passed away about 2 weeks after being diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she passed away from complications of that. So it was really quite a dark time those couple years. And after graduating residency, I developed quite a severe anxiety and depression. The panic attacks with the most unbearable sensation I never wish on anyone, and a really severe depression where I was huddling away from my family. I mentioned it in the book, but I can still hear the cries of my son calling for me from upstairs while I was hiding away in my basement. I was too ashamed to look them in the face, and because what I didn't know is, what I thought was just stress from the job and that I just couldn't live up to being a doctor wound up being true mental illness and from all the trauma that I experienced during the COVID times and the loss of my mother that I just hadn't processed. But
mm,
eventually, I got the help that I needed, which truly saved my life. And now I use my story to empower others to get the help that they need, but, in sharing my story, and many people have come to me and said that my story resonates with them because, I know what it means to suffer in silence, and I also know what it means, how how it feels even to recover from that. So I'm trying to erase the stigma around mental health. I'm trying to show others it's not a weakness to be suffering from this, and it's, the strongest thing you could do is get the help that you need because you'll be so much better for it if I can be a testament to that. And so I've been speaking as anywhere that someone will listen. And then I wrote the book, which, just trying to reach more people to share my story, and which what led me to get involved with NAMI as well. So, yeah, that's my
I
story.
I love it. I mean, the one thing that was really powerful when I read your book, and you just mentioned it, and Amanda mentioned it, was having the courage to say that you need help. You were struggling and you didn't know like specifically what it was, and you were witnessing all these deaths and everything around you, and it was just chaos and just stress, and stress obviously releases cortisol in your brain, and you didn't know if it was just stress, and stress can have obviously implications on everything inside of you. So what obviously the depression and everything that you had in that moment seemed to stand in the way of you becoming a doctor. So what was it? Was it the help, or what was it specifically that helped you over I don't want to say overcome, because it's something you continually, it's not like it goes away. You have to continually, overcome that all the time. It's not like it's all gone. So what do you do? What was it that, helped you kind of move forward? Was it getting help, or was there something specific with that?
Yeah, yeah, it was making the decision to get help and
Mm,
accept the help, right? I knew, that I needed help once. So I had probably the most severe, and I talk about this in the book too, the most severe panic attack. It
mm,
was December of 2022. And really, I thought there was something going on with my heart. That's how bad this panic attack was. And so, I had my wife rush me to the emergency room, and all the testing was negative, thankfully, for any type of heart disease or anything like that. My heart was fine, and um, I requested to speak to a psychiatrist. And bless her heart, she sat with me for over an hour, and she probably doesn't even know to this day the impact she had, but that was the real turning point. And we sat and we talked, and that's when I realized, this wasn't just being stressed from a job. This was something that I just hadn't faced and dealt with.
mhm,
So that was really the turning point where I had to then accept that I needed help, and I knew the help that I needed at that point because I'm a physician, and I know, and I've helped others, get the resources that I knew I needed, right? And it
mhm,
was just accepting that, and then also telling myself that if not for me, but for my family, right, my son and my wife, I needed to do something, right? Because I just
mm,
felt terrible. I felt terrible that I felt like a burden, right, which is part of
mhm,
depression, and that's why I was in such the deep parts of it. But as much as I felt like a burden to my family, I wanted to stop being a burden. So I
mm,
said, wherever this is going to lead me, I know I have to try, at least
mhm,
try, right? And like my
mhm,
psychologist told me the strongest thing I did was show up, sit in her office and just get there because a lot of people don't get to that point, right?
mhm.
And I feel for those people because I know and understand so much more now how someone could be led in a different direction. And I'm so glad I took the right direction. And that really was the turning point. I agree, we're always still, it's not something you truly fully overcome, but I'm in a
Mhm,
much better place now
mhm.
where not only can I talk about all of this, but I can help others, thankfully. And I'm just blessed to
Yeah.
be able to help other people. Yeah.
I love that you found happiness in this fact of helping other people overcome something that you struggled with, and I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much for having the courage to come forward and share your story and connect with people to really help them overcome the impossible, because that's really what a mind of a champion is. You have to go to that darkest dark place to be able to overcome and think about how you can make a brighter path forward for yourself. And it actually helped you grow willpower and the will to live. So I appreciate that. What inspires you every day to continue to move forward towards your passion? Like what is that? What continues to inspire you to continue moving forward?
You know, it's interesting. I thought my entire life my passion was to become a doctor. And
Hmm.
what I realize now was now I know what it feels like to have a true passion. That was more a goal that I set for myself that I was able to accomplish. And, I put a lot of hard work into doing so. But I've never felt such a burning passion to do something that I do now for mental health advocacy. It's something that I wake up thinking about and go and I fall asleep thinking about. It's,
Hmm.
I eat, sleep, everything. I don't know what the phrase is, this advocacy, right? And it's just because it's something I dealt with, and it's something I never want to deal with again. And because I know how terrible of a time it was for me and how
Hmm.
it affected me and my family, and I know that others are dealing with it, if not worse, I don't
Hmm.
want other people to be dealing with this because I know how it feels. It's so terrible of a feeling. So I think that's part of it, and that and teaching. I mean, because the teaching that I do, that I love it. It's so rewarding, and I'm trying to, because medical students, they're in such a difficult part of their lives when they're in that position, and 30% of medical students in the country have anxiety and depression, and
Yeah.
so it's so rewarding to train the next generation of physicians and try to mentor them in the right direction so that they don't get burnt out and lead to the consequences of that, like I did.
Yeah, there's so much. I was part of a group called Souls on Fire. It was a really interesting group of a lot of doctors in the group who were struggling with or had struggled with depression or obviously the stresses of being in the medical field. So I really think you're on to something specifically with the field and having colleagues in the field, and you can support each other. Having a community, there's so much power in connecting with other people. There's a lot of hyperscanning that's been done in the neuroscience research and looking at activity in the brain and how our neurons get activated when we're with other people on a common topic like this. And I think that it's just important. Michael is in his book, he talks about laying in the basement in his bedroom by himself and he wouldn't leave. He laid down there and that just continues to perpetuate this negativity and this darkness inside. And so getting out and being with people is so imperative, even though it goes against everything that you feel and want to do. It's just so important cognitively to do that, right? Was there something specific, or it sounded like when you talked to your psychiatrist, that left an impact on your thinking that really kind of was the change in kind of this journey? Or was it something you read or something you felt? Can you like think about that? Like, was there a time that you learned something that really had an impact on your thinking?
Yeah, yeah. So before speaking to that psychiatrist, in the emergency room, I just thought that I couldn't live up to being a doctor, that I just couldn't hack
Mm,
it, that I didn't have the skill, that I didn't have I lacked the confidence to do it, and that was why I was experiencing the manifestations of what eventually I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression.
mm,
But once I spoke to her, and she didn't sit there and just try to tell me what I had. We just talked, and she was able to really, illuminate all
mm,
the things that I had inside, right? And without really doing much besides having a conversation with me. You talk about
mhm,
like human connection, you were kind of hinting at that, and that's what it felt like. And anyway, so what I learned, what it was just all the trauma that I had dealt with, right? The trauma of losing so many patients, the trauma of losing my mother and not being able to properly grieve her loss, um, was what eventually led to, my mental illness. And
mm,
once I was able to accept that and get the help that I needed, then through tireless hours of work on myself with a psychologist every week, I took a medical leave just to take care of myself, was when I eventually was able to get better.
I wrote an article for Inc. magazine on grief. And my message, the reason why I wrote it is because I feel like I see this a lot in social media. I see it a lot just in conversation. People tend to judge kind of where people are in their processing of grief. You hear people say like they just can't get over it, or they'll say, man, they got over it fast. They're like moving on and I'm still grieving. And so this idea from a neuroscience standpoint is that obviously everyone grieves at different rates, and the chemicals that are in our brains before we even have to process that grief, or the cortisone that's in our brain and in our minds while we're processing grief, all of these things that are going on in our hormones and just different elements of just processing information can impact how we process grief. But I think that you really pinpointed something very important that I talk about in this article I wrote is if you are at a point, there is complicated grief. And if you are in a state of complicated grief, there is a point of time that you alone have to get help to get out of that process and the mindset that you're in. And it's very, very difficult, almost impossible. If you know someone going through this, you need to seek help. And you experience that. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being vulnerable to share that story in your book, Grief. Because I think it is powerful that, you know, someone that is of your stature had the courage to do that. So that is really amazing. And we're talking about winning. So that kind of like dovetails into this conversation. So what does winning look like to you? What is winning to you?
Winning, you know, are the messages I get thanking me for sharing my story, the gratitude I get from my students every day for just being me, saying that I'm a great mentor and advisor and teacher. And, you know, some of my students say, "Oh, you're the best thing to happen to the university," or like things
Oh,
like that, that just, yeah, they just warm my heart. It's unbelievable. Some of the things that my students tell me, you know, there was this one card I got from one of my students uh, not too long ago, where they were thanking me, and they wrote a quote that they had heard in the hallway from another student that said, "Dr. Foti isn't the teacher we deserve, but he's exactly the teacher we need." And I keep that right on my
oh,
board.
oh,
Yeah,
I
I keep it
love
right on my board.
that.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
so
So
perfect. That's beautiful. I'm so happy that someone celebrated you like that. You know, I think about this. Think of how long that took for that student to write that note. It only took a second to show gratitude for someone in your life. It only takes not even a second, a millisecond. You can send a text right now to someone right now and just tell them how much they mean to you and what they've done for you. That student note is going to be with you for forever on your board. And you know, I'm going to show my bookshelf over here. I don't know if you see, there's a bunch of notes. I
yeah,
have cards
yeah,
and notes and notes. There's a note there. I mean, look,
amazing.
the thing is, it's not about me receiving the note. It's about making the fact that someone felt that way because of something that happened in your interaction that was meaningful, that you know can spark that. And so I just challenge everyone who's listening tonight or who listen to this later to take a moment. Kevin Monroe and I, he's the gratitude coach, and he would say this, just, you know, take a moment and tell someone how you appreciate them. And absolutely, you'll make them feel like they're winning. And I love that. We should make everyone feel like they're winning. The garbage people that are coming tomorrow for an extra day, I'm going to share with them because they probably do not get that many opportunities of people thanking them. So thank you to those who are coming an extra day to pick up, because of the hurricane, our trash. So definitely take a moment and thank someone. I'm so glad that student did that. That's so
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Michael, share with us, if somebody's listening tonight and they feel like they are struggling, maybe with they don't know if it's depression. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're just feeling bad. They're having a bad period of time in their life. They don't know how they're gonna, you know, get out of this. They've lost their passion. They've lost their passion for learning. What would you suggest to them? What would be your recommendation to that person who needs that tonight?
Yeah, because the one thing when you're in that type of position is you're afraid to get help and speak up, right, and share that, and so the best and strongest thing you can do is get that help that you need. I know I'm on that other side of it, and I was afraid to do it, and I'm so happy that I did. So speak to your doctor, explain how you're feeling, get that help, whatever that is in whatever form. There's so many mental health resources out there, and really, just take that first step. There's that famous quote, "Journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step," right? So take that step. It's the best thing you'll ever do. If I could be a testament to that, I was in the darkest of places, and taking that first step saved my life. So please do so.
That is a perfect, beautiful, beautiful way to end today. That was such a winning day. Michael, tell everyone where they can find you. What's the best way to reach you if they need help and they want to connect with you or they want to read your book? What's the best place to find you? And then leave us today. Leave us on this August 13th, this awesome day with a final message and word of advice for everybody.
100%. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Foti, comma Do. My book, Grief: A Doctor's Battle with Anxiety and Depression, is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So please, I encourage you to grab a copy and read. I would love that. And the most this is I tell everyone this is kind of like my motto, is to be kind to yourself. The two things that were part of my healing journey were
Mhm.
gratitude, like we just talked about, and I loved everything you said about it, and self-compassion. Take care of yourself, but in order to start that journey of taking care of yourself, love yourself, be kind to yourself, and being kind to yourself is taking care of yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that and being with us tonight.